Hey guys, today I've got a special topic for you. You've decided to dive into the world of arachnids and recently you've acquired yourself a baby tarantula, also known as a sling. You feel overwhelmed with all the information and you don't know where to begin? I hope by the end of this video I can help you take care of your newfound friend. These tiny creatures may seem delicate, but with the right care, you can ensure that they thrive. So let's dive right in. First things first, let's talk about their enclosure. This is a highly controversial topic and there's really no best setup. Each owner has their own way of keeping their slings, but I will be showing you what worked best for me over the years and hopefully it will work for you as well. In general, use a small, well-ventilated enclosure with secured lids to prevent escapes. We will be dividing our tarantulas into three categories. We've got a terrestrial, arboreal, and a fossorial. Some species do have semi-arboreal characteristics, meaning they are terrestrial tarantulas, but they have the tendency to web up arboreally. But in the sling stage, it doesn't really matter what type of enclosure they're in, as much as a juvenile would matter. But your goal is to get them out of this sling stage as quick as possible because they're the most fragile in this state. First, we'll be starting with a terrestrial sling. For slings half an inch to an inch, I like to keep them in 2.5 ounce deli cups / jello shot cups. You can find this at your local Party City or a dollar store. You can use a push pin to make holes for ventilation, or you can buy yourself a soldering iron. But be careful not to make the hole too large as the sling could escape. As long as the vent holes are smaller than the body, then it should be safe. You can also use a drill with a 1/16 drill bit, but just make sure that the hole isn't any bigger than the body of the tarantula. Some may argue that this is too small for them, but by putting them in this enclosure, it alleviates a couple concerns that most beginners tend to have. Like, when they are put in a larger enclosure, 3 to 5 times its size, they tend to burrow themselves and hide for weeks, making feeding a little more difficult. You'll be concerned that they haven't eaten in a while and that it may starve itself. By putting them in this enclosure, you will be able to closely monitor them. Putting them in a large enclosure makes it harder for your slings to find its prey, and when you put them in these deli cups, they have a higher prey interaction, which will free up your worries about feeding them. Next, we have the arboreal slings. The care is exactly the same as previously mentioned. The only difference is the needed height for these tarantulas. In the wild, they live on trees, hence the name arboreal. Some arboreal slings, however, will tend to make a dirt curtain close to the ground, like the Psalmopoeus genus. Pill bottles are just the right size for your tiny slings, but you can also put them in nice looking display cases once they've gotten a bit bigger. Lastly, we have the fossorial slings. Like previously mentioned, the care is exactly the same as the others, but instead of height, they require depth, as they burrow in the wild. I like to use 2.5 ounce deli cups to house them, especially the ones that are below 1 inch, as you will be able to closely monitor them. You can also use pill bottles and fill it 3/4 of it with substrate. These previously mentioned guidelines are exactly the same for slings 1 to 1.5 inches, and after that point they're considered juveniles. For these slings, I like to keep them in 16 ounce deli cups or in acrylic display cases that I find at stationery aisles at the dollar store. I like converting these acrylic display cases because they are more aesthetically pleasing. And at this point, you can use a bottle cap as a water dish and put in their closure because it is big enough. For substrate, I like to use cocoa fiber to keep it simple. They're inexpensive and you get a lot when you buy those in brick form. You can add a bit of sphagnum moss for moisture retention and for the slings less than 1 inch to drink out of when a water dish is too big for their enclosure. This is a highly subjective topic and each owner has their own temperature preference. Some go by the rule, if you're comfortable, then your tea is comfortable. But personally, I like to keep them at around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit because I notice that my slings grow faster under these temperatures and paired with frequent feeding. When providing heat to your tarantulas, it is better to heat the room than themselves directly. Never use under tank heaters as they will burrow closer to the heat source and severely injure themselves, or worse, death. For humidity, I know that there's a ton of spreadsheets out there detailing each specific humidity range, but honestly, I like to keep it really simple. When substrate is dry, dampen a corner of the substrate, let it dry, and rinse and repeat. That's all you gotta do. I won't go into too much detail as I have made a video explaining how to feed slings. In short, I like to feed my slings mealworms and crickets at least 2 times a week. For slings that are too small to hunt their food, I chop up mealworms and give them each a piece. I highly recommend watching the sling feeding video as I go into more detail. As the days or weeks go by, you notice that your sling is acting weird. They either have burrowed themselves and locked themselves in, or they just refuse to eat altogether. And coupled that with a plump and really dark abdomen, don't be alarmed. That means your sling is in pre-molt. In this state, they will refuse to eat for weeks as it prepares its body for the stress of molting its exoskeleton. This is how they grow, and it means that you are doing everything right. Just be patient and leave them be. To summarize, slings under 1 inch, I use 2.5 ounce deli cups or pill bottles. Slings 1 inch to 1.5 inches, I put them in 16 ounce deli cups or an acrylic display case of your choice. Use cocoa fiber as their substrate and keep them around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Miss one side of their enclosure or substrate when dry. Feed 2 times a week with either chopped up mealworms or crickets or roaches. Plump and dark abdomen means it's in pre-molt and will refuse to eat, so don't be alarmed. Again, there's no best way to keep your slings. Each owner has their own way that works for them. I'm just showing you what worked for me over the years of raising slings to maturity. If you guys found this video helpful, please subscribe as it will definitely help out the channel. I'll be uploading more videos, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!